You have been looking at the world your entire life, assuming that your eyes are windows and your brain is a faithful recorder of facts. But this is the first and most dangerous lie you tell yourself. Have you ever truly stopped, in the terrified silence of the night, to examine the mechanism of your own looking? I am not asking what you see. I am asking you to dissect the violent, invisible explosion that occurs in the split second of seeing. The precise instant a photon strikes the retina and a phantom enters your awareness. We need to talk about what the mind does with that phantom. We need to talk about the terrifying speed at which meaning is manufactured out of nothing. How automatically the judge within you slams down the gavel. How a simple, neutral perception is hijacked, dressed in the costumes of your past traumas, and paraded before you as the absolute truth. Most human beings live and die without ever examining this machinery. We sleepwalk through existence with the arrogant assumption that seeing is straightforward. We believe something is there. We look at it. We know what it is. Done. Simple. But the Buddha, the great physician of the mind, suggested something radically different. He tore apart this assumption 2,500 years ago. He revealed that between the moment of contact when the world touches you and the moment of experience when you react to it, there is a hidden process, a shadow factory, a dark alchemy that shapes every tear you cry, every rage you feel, and every ounce of suffering that crushes your chest. And the tragedy is that most of us have never clearly seen this factory at work. Understand this is not philosophy. This is not intellectual gymnastics for scholars in ivory towers. This is the bloody, visceral mechanics of why the same situation can ruin your day while leaving another person completely untouched. This is the secret of why some words wound you and fester in your soul for decades, while others slide off like rain on oil. Why peace feels like a ghost always close, yet eternally out of reach. So consider this an invitation to a revolution. We are not here to believe anything new. We are here to look at looking itself, to turn the eye inward and catch the mind in the act of fabrication. The Buddha described a phenomenon that hides in plain sight, the chain reaction between the eye meeting an object and the self claiming it. In the Madhupindika Sutta, the discourse on the Honeyball, he laid out a catastrophic chain of events that detonates every time you perceive anything. It begins with contact. The eye meets a form. A vibration occurs. From this raw contact arises feeling. Not an emotion yet, but a raw tona, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. A biological signal. From this raw feeling arises perception. The mind, desperate for order, begins to recognize and label. It consults its library of past experiences. And from perception arises thinking. The narrative begins. And from thinking arises what the Buddha called Papañca. This ancient Pali word does not translate easily into our modern tongues, but points to something we all know intimately, something that haunts us. It means the explosion of mental elaboration, the proliferation of concepts. Suddenly, the simple object is buried. Concepts pile on top of concepts like a collapsing building. Old memories are triggered like landmines. Judgments form like concrete. Emotions rise like a tidal wave. Stories, complete fictions, begin to play out in high definition. This chain arises with a velocity that defies comprehension. It happens so fast that by the time you are aware of anything, the movie is already playing, and you are already strapped into the chair. We do not catch the process, we only catch the result. And the fatal error is that we mistake that result for reality. Let us ground this in the brutality of your daily life. You are walking down the street. You see a friend, someone whose history is woven with yours. You prepare the social mask. You are about to wave, maybe call out their name. But they walk right past you. Their eyes are fixed forward. There is no nod, no smile, no acknowledgement, nothing but the cold air between you. Stop. Freeze that frame. That is what happened. A biological entity walked past another biological entity without turning its head. That is the raw data. But notice, with horror, what the mind does next. Within seconds, the factory of Papañca roars to life. Did they see me? They must have seen me. It is impossible they missed me. Why didn't they say hello? Are they upset with me? What did I do wrong? Maybe it's about that message I didn't reply to last week. Or maybe they just don't care anymore. Maybe they never really liked me in the first place. I am alone. By now, you feel a physical knot twisting in your stomach. A chemical cocktail of cortisol and adrenaline floods your veins. Maybe you feel the sharp sting of hurt. Maybe the heat of anger. Maybe you are already composing a vicious text message in your head or deciding, with cold resolve, that you will cut them out of your life. But here is what is worth noticing. Here is the liberation. None of that happened. What happened is that a person walked by. Perhaps they were lost in the labyrinth of their own suffering. Perhaps they were not wearing their glasses, and the world was a blur. Perhaps they were having a terrible day, crushed by news of a death or a loss, and didn't notice a single soul around them. You don't know. You cannot know. And yet, the mind built an entire world, a Gothic cathedral of rejection complete with motives, history, and heavy emotional weight. And you, the puppet, reacted to that world. You felt genuine pain caused by an event that may never have occurred at all. This is what the Buddha was pointing to with the ferocity of a diamond cutting glass. Not that the friend wasn't real. Not that the street wasn't real. But that the meaning you gave it, the story you told, the victim, self that felt rejected, all of that was added. Constructed. Painted on top of a simple moment like graffiti on a holy shrine. In the Sutta Nikaya, the Buddha compared the mind to a painter, but a painter far more dangerous, varied, and colorful than any artist who ever lived. A human painter creates an image on a flat canvas. The mind creates a three-dimensional, immersive world, and then hypnotizes you into believing you are living in it. So here is the terrifying insight. If the mind paints the world, then what you are looking at right now is not the world. You are looking at your mind. You are looking at your own memories projected onto the screen of the present. You are looking at your fears given form. You are looking at your desires and your conditioning, all of it vomited outward and mistaken for what is actually there. The problem isn't that things don't exist. The problem is Papañca, the layers of interpretation, the glue of clinging that runs after every perception. You see something, and before you can even register the seeing, the mind has already added commentary, judgment, and emotional charge. And that is what you react to, not the world. The commentary, you are fighting with your own echo. So, if what we see is the mind's hallucination, then what is this? What is that the Buddha kept pointing to? What does it actually mean to shatter the glass and see things as they are? In Pali, the Buddha used the word yath vita as it actually is. But do not be mistaken. He was not asking you to see some kind of absolute, objective reality floating in a vacuum. Every perception passes through the filter of sense organs. Every experience is processed by consciousness. There is no way to step outside of your own head and see a pure world untouched by mind. So what was he pointing to? There are two layers to this wisdom, deep and penetrating. The first layer is seeing the nature of all phenomena, not the content of what you see, not the story, but the underlying characteristics that everything in this universe shares. The Buddha spoke of three marks that you will find stamped on every experience, without exception. First, impermanence, Anicca. Everything that arises from a galaxy to a thought will pass away. The pleasant feeling that you crave will not last. The painful one that you fear will not last either. Even the sense of you reading these words is a process in motion, a river flowing, not a fixed stone. Second, unsatisfactoriness, dukkha. The subtle H of trying to hold on to what is changing. The friction, the gap between what you want things to be and what they brutally are. And third, non-self anat. There is no fixed, unchanging I at the center of your experience. There is only a collection of processes arising and passing, a dance without a dancer. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha declared, when one sees with wisdom that all conditioned things are impermanent. That all conditioned things are unsatisfactory. That all phenomena are non-self. This is the path to purity. The second layer is even more immediate. It is about seeing the process of experience itself as it is happening in real time. There is a legendary teaching that the Buddha gave to a desperate wanderer named Bāhiya, recorded in the Udne. Bāhiya came running, covered in dust, desperate for instruction before he died. And the Buddha gave him perhaps the most direct, surgical teaching in all of the scriptures, in the seeing. There shall be just the seen. Let those words land like a thunderclap. Not I am seeing, not I like what I see. Not this reminds me of something, just the seen. Imagine you see a flower, a simple flower by the roadside. In that first fraction of a second, there is just seeing color, shape, form appearing to awareness. No words, no history. But then the parasite enters. Beautiful, the mind whispers. Then I want to take a photo. Then this reminds me of the garden my grandmother had. Then I miss her. Then why does everything I love go away? Within seconds, you are no longer seeing the flower. You are lost in a graveyard of memory, in longing, in a self that feels loss. The flower is still there, vibrating with life, but you have left it far behind to dwell in a ghost world. What the Buddha is pointing to is this experience happens, seeing happens. But we don't have the courage to leave it at that. We construct a self in the middle of it. We say I see, and suddenly there is a protagonist. We say I want, and suddenly there is someone who lacks. We build an identity around every experience, and then we suffer when that identity is threatened. To see what it means to see this construction happening. To see the flower and know clearly, this is seeing. And if longing arises, to know clearly, this is longing arising. Not mixing it into I miss. Not fusing the feeling with a self. Just seeing the process as a scientist observes a reaction. This is not cold detachment. This is blazing clarity. And in that clarity, there is freedom, because you are no longer at the mercy of every reaction that arises. You can see it. And in seeing it, you are no longer trapped by it. If this is possible, if we can truly see experience as is, without adding the extra layers of poison, then why is it so incredibly hard? Why do we keep reacting to our own constructions without even knowing it? Why do we choose the nightmare over the waking state? Because something is clouding the water. The Buddha used a powerful image for this in the Sutta Nikaya. He compared the mind to a bowl of water that you use to see your reflection. When the water is clear and still, you see your face as it is. But when the water is contaminated, the reflection becomes distorted or invisible altogether. Imagine you want to see your own face. You lean over a bowl of water, but the water has been dyed with bright red colors you can't see clearly. You only see what attracts you, what you desire. This is sensual desire. Or perhaps the water is boiling with heat, bubbling and hissing. The surface is too disturbed by agitation. This is ill will. When you are angry, even kind words sound like attacks. Or perhaps the water is covered with moss and algae. Everything is dull, dark, and heavy. This is sloth and torpor. The mind is asleep at the wheel. Or the wind keeps stirring at the surface, never settles. This is restlessness and worry. The mind keeps jumping, never settling long enough to see anything. And finally, imagine the water is murky and kept in shadows. There is no light, no stable ground. This is doubt. When one or more of these hindrances are present, and often several operate at once like a gang of thieves, you cannot see the reflection of experience clearly. The water is too disturbed. At a deeper level, there is ignorance, AVG. This is not stupidity. It is a fundamental not seeing of how things are. We walk through life believing things are permanent, believing there is a solid me that needs protecting. This not seeing is the deepest veil, and from this darkness comes craving the desperate wanting to hold on to what is pleasant, to push away what is unpleasant, to make things other than they are. When craving is present, you don't see what is. You see what you want it to be, or what you fear it is. There is also habit. You have been reacting in certain ways for so long, across so many lifetimes, that the patterns run automatically. Criticized, defensive, hurt, contract, loss, cling. These reactions happen faster than awareness. You wake up already in the middle of the emotion, not knowing how you got there. This is where most of us live. Not because we are broken, but because the contamination has been in the water so long that we have forgotten what clear water looks like. We think we are seeing our reflection. We are seeing distortion and calling it reality. So how do we purify the water? How do we stop the boiling and clear the algae? The Buddha didn't just diagnose the terminal illness, he offered the cure. And the way is not complicated. It does not require levitation or reading minds. It requires something simpler, and in some ways infinitely harder, the patient, relentless practice of paying attention. Imagine someone says something that bothers you, a comment that stings like a whip. You feel it land in your chest. The heat starts to rise. This is the moment, right here. This is the battlefield. Usually, what happens next is automatic. The mind starts building the fortress. How dare they say that? They always do this. They don't respect me. I should say something back. No, I should just leave. But if I leave, they win, and you are gone, lost in the story. Reacting to the construction, not to what actually happened. But there is another possibility, a secret door. The Buddha's instructions in the Sattva Sutta are precise and unyielding. When feeling a painful feeling, one knows I am feeling a painful feeling. The first step is simply to stop, not to fix anything, not to make the feeling go away. Just to stop the machine and recognize something is happening. There is heat in the chest. There is a painful feeling. It is here. This sounds almost too simple to be a superpower. But think about how rarely we do it. Usually, the reaction and the response are fused together like melted metal. There is no gap. We only realize what happened after we have already spoken the harsh words or spent an hour ruminating in misery. The practice is to create a gap, a sacred pause. Just enough space to shift from being swept away by the river to standing on the bank, knowing that the sweeping is happening. There is a universe of difference between being angry and knowing that anger is present. In the first case, you are the anger, there is no space, no freedom. In the second, there is awareness that anger has arisen. The anger is still there, but you are not lost in it. And when you can see it, you notice something miraculous, it changes. The anger that felt so solid, so permanent, begins to shift. It intensifies, then weakens. It moves through the body like a weather system. It is not one thing, it is a process. From this vantage point, you can start to see what the mind adds. The comment was made that is the only fact. But the story about disrespect, the memories of past hurts, the plans for retaliation, the narrative about people like them, all of that is addition. The mind painting war colors on top of the moment. When you see this, you have a choice. You can follow the story into hell, or you can return to what is actually here, a sensation in the chest, a feeling that is already changing, a moment that is already passing. This is not suppression. You are not pushing away thoughts. You are seeing them for what they are: constructions, additions, paint on top of reality. And in seeing them clearly, they begin to lose their power to drag you along. Each time you do this, each time you stop, recognize, and return, the water settles a little more. This is not a one-time achievement. It is a way of living. There will be times when you can't do it, when the reaction is too strong, when the tsunami hits you, and you only realize later. That is not failure. That is part of the path. You notice, you learn, and you begin again. The water doesn't become clear all at once. It settles. Little by little, moment by moment. What you see is not what is. Not because the world is an illusion in the sense that it doesn't exist, but because there is a process running between you and reality, Papañca, the elaboration, the construction, the adding of self where there is none, and you have been reacting to that process your entire life, mistaking it for the world. The Buddha showed that it is possible to see through the matrix. What is not a mystical state reserved for monks in caves. It is available in every heartbeat beat. It is the direct seeing of impermanence, of unsatisfactoriness, of non-self. It is watching the process of perception unfold and catching the moment when the mind begins to add. It is knowing that the story is a story. The path to this seeing is not a single leap across the abyss. It is stopping one moment at a time, recognizing one moment at a time, letting the water settle one moment at a time. In the Dhammapada, the Buddha said, "You yourselves should make the effort to. The Tathagatas only can show the way." He pointed to the moon. He didn't grab your head and force you to look. The teaching is an invitation. The looking is yours to do. And this is not a burden. This is the most intimate gift you can give yourself, the possibility of seeing your own mind clearly, of understanding why you suffer, of no longer being at the mercy of reactions you don't even know are happening. The path has been shown. Countless people have walked it before you, ordinary people with ordinary lives who simply paid attention. again and again, and found their way to clarity. The walking is yours, step by step, day by day, with patience, with kindness toward yourself, with the willingness to begin again every time you get lost. Wake up. The water is waiting to be cleared.